Today, we're going to talk about why your cravings aren't gone, and here's why your plant based diet isn't the fix yet. And yet is the most important word here. So, let's imagine it's 8 p.m., right? And you're scrolling through a recipe blog feeling really proud of the hearty lentil stew you had for dinner, the stew, right? Then, but then it hits this kind of weird feeling like a craving for something sweet, something comforting, something that's not plant based. So you start rummaging through the pantry and you find yourself looking over everything. And finally, you found some leftover candy from Halloween. And then suddenly you find yourself asking, why am I still craving this stuff? You think. I mean, after all, you've made the switch to a plant based diet. Isn't that supposed to solve everything? Well, if that story sounds familiar, you're not alone. So, cravings for junk food and sugar aren't just about what's on your plate. They're about how your brain has been trained to seek rewards. And then, even the healthiest diet cannot automatically undo years of habits, especially what we describe as habit loops. But there is absolutely hope by understanding science of cravings and then embracing something we describe as mindfulness, which I'll go through here in a minute. You can finally quiet those persistent urges. First of all, let's talk about why cravings persist and then why a habit loop just kind of tends to live on. So, when you indulge in junk food, your brain releases something called dopamine. It's a chemical that makes you feel good. And over time, this creates a habit loop. There's a cue, let's say boredom or stress, that triggers a craving, and you indulge. But basically, the cue triggers a behavior, which is, let's say, eating something, and then you indulge in whatever that is, and then your brain rewards you with dopamine. Now, the loop is powerful, and it doesn't just disappear when you switch to a plant-based diet. So even without, the cookies and the chips, your brain remembers the pleasure and continues to seek it out. A plant-based diet might remove triggers or not provide those particular types of food, but it doesn't break the loop. And what sometimes you can see the food in and of itself as a trigger because it reminds you of something, but it also doesn't remove stress or the boredom or the emotions that are tied to that particular food. So remember, this is where mindfulness comes in. So, step one, mindfulness is the power to pause and observe. That's really important. Cravings thrive on automatic behavior, right? These are habit loops. Mindfulness disrupts the current cycle or that loop by encouraging you to pause, observe, and understand your cravings without judgment. And that's really important here because you're just observing. Judgment is just another emotion, right? We don't want to feel guilty because we're having the craving. The craving's there. We accept that the craving's there, but we're going to interact with it differently. We're not going to try to fight it, and we're not going to indulge it so it'll go away, right? It's almost like you allow the bully to bully you just so you can decrease your suffering for the short term. You suffer for a moment and then you hope the bully goes away. That's not how it works, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to lean into something called curiosity. And you're like, what is curiosity have to do this? Well, instead of, viewing your cravings as enemies, treat them like an experiment. Now, this is going to allow you to be the observer of the cravings. And so think of your cravings as like your river, right? And so the craving wants to pull you in. It's enticing. The water looks cool, but it looks refreshing versus standing out on the banks and observing the river go by, right? That craving will try to pull you in. And you want to think of it as like if a car was passing by, right? You hear the sound get louder, 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 and then it goes by. That's exactly what a craving does. It's an energy. It's not you, but it's there for a reason. But what we're going to do is we're going to observe it. We're going to step back and look at it like an experiment, right? So imagine you're a scientist observing an interesting phenomenon, because that's really what it is. It's a phenomenon. It's an emotion. It does not mean that you are the emotion. It's just a feeling that you're having. And so I could say I'm a pink elephant, but I'm not a pink elephant, right? There might be a thought in my head that, oh, I'm a failure, doesn't mean you're a failure. Or oh, that you're ugly, or that I'm useless. You see, all these emotions, this verbiage that goes on in our head, this voice, when we fight it or believe it, it gives it energy, right? Because we identify with it. So now we're going to break the identity. We're going to step back, right? Treat this like an experiment. So if you you can even visually imagine yourself putting on a white lab coat, and you can look at the craving as it's a it's a little beaker full of whatever color you can imagine it. So you can say, "Oh, here's my beaker full of cravings for, I don't know, chocolate cake. Make it brown, or make it whatever color you want." And you can literally write on the in your mind cravings for chocolate cake. Now we're going to sit there and we're going to observe it. What does that craving feel like, right? What thoughts accompany it? How long does it last? And because research shows that cravings often peak and then they fade within about 20 minutes if you simply observe them without acting. And so the observations, asking questions, and what you're doing is you're dismantling the reward component of that habit loop. And when you don't have a reward, there's no reason for the habit to exist in the first place. So by leaning into curiosity, you kind of detach the craving and reduce its power. So the next time the craving hits, ask yourself 3 questions. Where do I feel, or excuse me, where do I feel the craving in my body? Okay, is it some type of chest just tightness? Do I feel anxious? Do I get rapid heartbeat? Those type of things. Do I feel fearful or frustrated? And then what are the emotions or thoughts that are fueling it? So, what was that original trigger that caused that craving to begin with? Was it stress or boredom or feelings of something that you don't want to deal with? So, you're like, I'm going to distract myself with eating. So, there's lots of things here that you want to understand about the craving. Where is it deriving its power? Because once you understand where it's deriving your power, you can pay attention to that area that needs it. So maybe it's because you're fatigued, or because you're very stressed, or you didn't get enough rest. So you can address the actual root cause of the trigger, right? So there's things here to learn. There's no judgment. This is just strictly being the scientist and making observations about the experiment, which is the craving. So and then the third question is, what happens if I don't react immediately? Does a craving get louder? Does a craving get stronger? Do you feel the another emotion bubbling up? Do you feel like you have to fight it? Do you feel like you're a failure because you even have a craving? It's really important to understand that you are not a failure because you have emotions. You're not a failure because you have certain thoughts. You're not a failure even if you decide to indulge in eating this. The point here is that we're just observing and we're learning a new skill called mindfulness. And the mindfulness muscle, the more you use it, the better it gets. So you can use mindfulness in even mundane tasks such as cutting vegetables, driving, taking a walk, folding your laundry. It doesn't matter. I mean, you can just literally be present and observe what's going on around you. You don't even have to necessarily ask questions about it. You can just try to see if by being present, taking some deep breaths, if the chatter in your brain actually decreases, the volume turns down. Because typically what happens with this little voice in our heads, or your roommate that's in your head, it's anxious about something about in the future that it can't control, right? Because remember, those voices are going on in our head because it's trying to create a story that you are going to be okay, right? That's just what the brain's doing. It's creating a story of something that's occurring so you'll feel okay. So let's say that you have this voice and it's anxious. Well, you're worried about something in the future that hasn't even happened yet, right? Or you're feeling regret. So now that voice, now you're living in the past. You're not present. So the past is done. Yes, there may have been unpleasant things that have occurred in our past, as we all have them, right? We all have them. And there's nothing wrong with saying it's okay to let the past be the past. You are here where you are now. Let go. The moment you decide you can let go, you give yourself permission to let go, you will find that there's a huge weight released, right? And when you find yourself worrying about something in the future. Trust me, I'm very good at understanding worry and anxiety as a companion. But I've decided to let that companion go. I'm a mother. I always worry about my kids when they travel internationally. I have one in Southeast Asia currently. My old self would have been worried and anxious and checking his location constantly on the phone. But my new self is, I understand that I've raised my son well. He's going to be okay, regardless of what happens. He's going to be okay. And that I understand that my anxiety, my worry, and my brain were something creating that worry, right? I'm trying to control the situation by controlling, creating some kind of worry or something like that's going to make it better. All it does is cause me suffering. So I hope that helps kind of build why your brain is doing that, right? But when you're in the present moment, you're not living in the future or the past, you're just here and you accepted what the reality is. And you're not fighting it, you're not trying to create a new scenario or story around it. You're just literally in the moment, which is awesome because in that moment comes peace and joy and clarity on the next action that you may need to do. So remember, the moment of pause creates space to make a conscious decision or a mindful choice. And then you can decide, do I want to indulge in this or do I not? Right. And then don't feel bad about one way or the other. Because let's say you choose to indulge in it, you can continue the mindfulness component, which we'll get to in here in a minute, and another little exercise you can do to understand, even if you choose to indulge it, how you can keep it from being a huge indulgence to maybe a smaller indulgence. I'll get to that in a minute. The next thing to think about is name it to tame it, right? So once you've observed the craving and label it, in your beaker, this is the craving for sugar. This is the craving for chocolate. This is stress speaking. Giving it a name helps separate the cravings from your identity, making it easier to manage without judgment or guilt. Remember, you are not the craving. You are not the emotion. You are not the thought. You're the observer of those things. The moment that you separate yourself from that, the better you're going to feel. We do this when we're raising our children, right? So we have children who, let's say, throw a tantrum because they didn't get what they want. You can speak to them about what were you feeling when you had that happen. Once they're calmed down, like, what was going on here? What would that, if that, maybe they said I was mad. Well, what does mad look like? Does mad have a color? Does mad have a name? This is literally what you can do with kids, because in the moment they see that feeling, you're beginning to understand emotional regulation, right? How you can emotionally regulate yourself is that when you see that bubbling up, if you let a child teach them these are emotions, doesn't mean you have to act upon them. You are giving them a skill set that will take them very far in this world. And so we just have to remember that we can do that ourselves. All right, I'm going to go on to more kind of practical tools to support mindfulness. This would be what I consider step 2, right? So again, while mindfulness will help you kind of disrupt the craving loop, the habit loop, practical tools ensure you're equipped to make healthier choices. So let's talk about these strategies. Number 1 is meal prep, because convenience meets control, right? So cravings are strongest when you're hungry or emotionally drained, typically at the end of the day. Meal prepping gives you ready-made, nutrient-dense options that satisfy the hunger and stabilize your blood sugars and reduce the likelihood of junk food binges. And so why it works, because having prepped meals or snacks removes decision fatigue, right? So when healthy choices are easy and accessible, you're less likely to grab the processed foods. So what to try? Maybe some batch prep, some plant-based snacks like roasted chickpeas, trail mix, energy balls made from dates, nuts, and some cocoa powder. These options, one, they provide sweetness, crunch, richness you crave without the harmful additives. So let's say that you come home from a really stressful day at work and you know you need to eat your healthy dinner, but you're going to take a little bit of time to prepare. Let's say you batch cook, but you still need to warm it up and stuff. But versus, I could just go to DoorDash and order that pizza and it'll be here in 10 minutes. Instead, take some deep breaths, think about what's going on. Maybe you go and have a small bite of something that you've prepared, like a plant-based snack before your meal. And then that gives you a moment of clarity to say, actually, no, I really do want to eat the meals and the food that I've prepared. 1, it's better for me. 2, it saves some money. But 3, I'll also feel better. I'll sleep better. It moves me towards my goal, right? So these are the things that the conversations you should be having in your head. And then number 2 would be, I'd say the next practical strategy would be reinvent comfort foods, right? So cravings for comfort foods are often tied to emotional needs. So by reinventing your favorite using, let's say, plant-based ingredients, you satisfy both the emotional and physical craving without necessarily resorting to processed options. So remember why it works. Familiar flavors and textures trigger the same sense of comfort without relying on unhealthy ingredients. So let's say that you are really wanting a cheesy mac and cheese, okay, or mashed potatoes or something like that, right? So let's say for the cheesy cravings, you create a cashew baked queso and sprinkle nutritional yeast on popcorn. You can swap French fries for crispy air fried sweet potato wedges, right? Craving desserts, you can blend bananas with cocoa powder for a creamy, satisfying nice cream. So let's see at the end of the day, yes, you understand there's some emotional ties to this, but at least if we're choosing to indulge the craving with food, let's make it at least a healthier option. So there's multiple strategies here we can do. There's one final one. It's called the 3-bite rule. And that's kind of savor with intention. And that's an important thing to remember here. So sometimes your craving feels so hot and so strong that you can't. You really are just so exhausted. You emotionally don't have the ability or energy to become the scientist in the moment. So the 3-bite rule kind of allows you to indulge without derailing your progress. So you take 3 slow bites. These are called deliberate bites, right? Of the food that you crave, savoring each one mindfully. So, why it works, research shows that mindful indulgence satisfies cravings without triggering overindulgence. So, what to try next? So, next time you're craving, let's say, chocolate cake or chips, serve yourself a small portions, take 3 small bites, and notice how your body feels. Often the craving diminishes before you finish. You don't want to be involved with a craving if you're feeling like it's too hot and being distracted, because when you are distracted you're not mindful. Like if you're doing this while you're watching television or scrolling on your phone, you're in a place of there's no way mindfulness can take place. So instead you have the 3-bite rule, and the 3-bite rule means no distractions. You're going to sit down somewhere, you're going to prepare it like you were on a date with a hottie, right? So you're going to sit down and you're going to go, well, hello, right? It's a small portion. You're gonna, before you take a bite, you're gonna just observe it. You're gonna smell it. You're gonna look at it. If it's something you can hold, feel the texture. And then you take a bite. Before you chew, you observe the texture in your mouth. You chew it well. And I'm talking probably 20 chews before you allow yourself to swallow. So now what we're doing is we're observing the behavior of the craving, one, as it's being indulged, but now we're actually enjoying it, right? We've detached the emotion. We're not feeding the emotion. Now we're actually just sitting down and enjoying the dessert because we're in the moment and we're actually actively enjoying it. So important. So remember that probably no more than 3 bites, whatever that serving size is for whatever it is, and you know that you're going to get these 3 bites, you're going to enjoy every moment of it, and you're going to leave it at that. And you can walk away feeling like, you know what, that was amazing. And there's going to build confidence in your ability to understand that you are not your cravings, that the cravings are there for an emotion. You understand that, but you decided in that moment, I'm going to actually enjoy this, but with my enjoyment, I'm going to set some rules. And you cannot set yourself any more than 3. The other thing you could do is really try to not put anything in your environment, your immediate environment, like at home, wherever you may be easy access. So, like Chef AJ says, if it's in your house, it's in your mouth, 100%. So try to keep those options out of the home. And if you have others who live with you that bring it home, try to keep it at least out of eyesight, or make them put their name on their cabinet, so at least then you feel like if you do go after something, you're stealing from someone. Maybe that'll be enough to make you go, what am I doing? Right? So again, just some tricks of the trade here that might be helpful. And is it a very straight path to dealing with cravings and conquering cravings. No, it's like any other journey. It's going to be zigzaggy, and you're going to have, two steps forward, one step back. And that's okay. That's the way human life is. Life is messy. Things constantly change. What worked today may not work tomorrow. You just have to be open and aware of what's going on. When you have the awareness, that is where the power comes. And the awareness comes from the curiosity. So next is, I would say the final step is step 3 is rewire your reward system. So cravings, again, often come from unmet needs, emotional or physical. So once you've paused and observed the craving, meet that need in a healthier way. Emotional cravings, let's say that you're craving comfort, brew a cup of herbal tea or take a walk to soothe your nerves, right? Take some deep breaths, take a hot bath. Let's say you're having physical cravings. If hunger is the issue, have a nourishing snack like a handful of nuts or a piece of fruit. If you find that you're still hungry, maybe there's something else going on. Just keep investigating. But prepping the plant based snacks ahead of time really ensures you're ready for those moments as well. So if you're truly hungry, you'll have healthy options versus indulging in a larger component of the unhealthy, like a big, whole chocolate cake. Maybe you keep little small date balls with made from cocoa and some almond butter or something. Those available for you, but maybe only have 2 or 3 available at a time, not like 12. So again, you can over time teach your brain to associate new rewards with healthier behaviors. So again, the big picture is cravings can be your catalyst, right? So cravings don't mean you're feeling. It's really important to understand that. They're just signals from your brain. There are opportunities to observe, learn, and make conscious, mindful choices. So by leaning into your curiosity, rewiring your rewards, and using practical tools like meal prep, comfort food, reinvention, in the 3 bite rule, you can break the craving loop and really truly thrive on a plant based diet. So, again, so the next time you feel that familiar pull, you can observe that energy pulling you. Just pause and observe and ask yourself, what do I really need? Because chances are it's not in the pantry. It's in the power you hold to reshape your habits and then reclaim your calm. Because I know you've got this, guys. You absolutely do. But if you're looking for additional help, we have just launched our Healing Kitchen community. We've had the Healing Kitchen going on for about 1.5 years where we just met weekly. But now we have a community where you can be interactive 24/7. And so there you're going to see all the older recipes, the workshops. You'll engage with other members in the community. It's been amazing and fun. And right now, the monthly charge is going to stay the same. It's going to go up in January. So if you want to dive in, you'll be locked in at the price that you will have if you join now. It's such a wonderful place to know that you have a safe place to interact with people and just be your true self when it comes to the plant-based diet. You don't have to defend yourself. You don't have to be embarrassed by asking questions if you're struggling on the plant-based diet. You don't have to fear judgment or anything like that. It is a beautiful place to connect with others, and there's going to be a lot of cool things that we're going to be doing over the next year. We're launching our course. We're self-publishing our ebook. There's so many things that we're going to be doing to continue to support you along your journey on the plant-based path. And I hope you find an opportunity. Share this with someone if you don't mind. If you find someone that's new to the plant-based diet, or maybe someone who's ongoing is just looking for a community, we would love to be part of that solution. So again, click subscribe, comment below if you find this helpful, and I'll be back tomorrow with another big problem sometimes people face on the plant-based diet and how to solve it. So I'm doing this for a period of 10 days. This was day 2. If you missed day 1, you might want to go over and check it out, because we talked about why are you always hungry on a plant-based diet. So that was yesterday's live. So you might definitely want to check that out. So again, thank you for being here. I'm sending gratitude, joy, love, and healing your way. So thankful for you being here and spending time with me, and because I know you could be elsewhere. And so as always, thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time.